Meeting of the Troy Zoning Board of Appeals Board, and we are going to start our meeting with the roll call, and we will consider quorum present after Mr. Evans calls it.
Mr. Clark.
I'm here.
Mr. Agawas.
Here.
Mr. Desmond.
Here.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Ms. Cruz.
Here.
Mr. Bossenbrook.
Here.
So we have quorum to establish a formal meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals tonight, and I'm going to call on Vice Chairman Agawas to read our rules and procedures. So this is for the benefit of those who are either watching at home or here in the chamber. We do have formalized procedures that must be adhered to, so we're going to have that order during the whole course of the meeting tonight, and the Vice Chairman is going now to describe them to the people who are listening.
The Zoning Board of Appeals is a group of 7 of your neighbors appointed by City Council to decide on requests for variances and other matters that are brought before them. A variance is a relaxation of the literal provisions of the zoning ordinance. Petitioners must indicate a hardship or practical difficulty with the land that would warrant the granting of the variance. The board will hear the items in the order that they appear on the agenda. When an item is called, the chairman will verify that the petitioner is present. Then the city administration will summarize the facts of the case. The petitioner will then be given an opportunity to address the board to explain the justification for the action requested. After the petitioner makes their presentation and answers any questions that the board may have, the chairman will open the public hearing. Any person wishing to speak on the request should raise their hand and, when recognized by the chairman, come up to the podium. The speaker should identify themselves with name and address, indicate their relationship to the property in question, such as next door neighbor, live behind the property, etc., and state whether they are in favor of or against the variance request and give reasons for their opinion. Comments must be directed through the chairman. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and closely pertain to the matter under consideration. Only one person will be recognized by the chairman to speak at one time. At the conclusion of public comments, the chairman will close the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, no other public comment will be taken unless in response to a specific question by a member of the board. The board will then make a motion to approve, deny, or postpone the request. In order for the request to pass, a minimum of 4 votes are needed. If the request is not granted, the applicant has the right to appeal the board's decision to Oakland County Circuit Court.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Agawas. So just to sum up, because we actually have a pretty good crowd here tonight, and I'm sure you're only here because the movie theater down the road's air conditioning broke down, right? So we're going to have a good time here tonight. Just to sum up what we're going to be doing here, only one person can speak from the microphone at any time. No one from the gallery can ever speak a word because it all has to be captured onto the public record. So if you want to speak, I'm going to call it open hearing, public hearing, and you'll have the right to be heard right from that microphone right there, and we'll be happy to hear that from you. So we'll move right on to item 3, approval of the minutes regarding the June 18th meeting. Is there a comment, question, or motion that a board member would like to make? Yes, sir.
Mr. Clark, I had a chance to review the meeting minutes for the last month, and I believe I noticed a typographical error. Under item number 5, for the roll call for the individuals who voted against the variance request, I believe it's listed as alternate green, and I believe yourself, Chair Clark, was actually the one who voted on that particular.
Was that an item 1 or 2?
The second item.
Oh, yes. Yes, he was off the board at that point. So you're correct. Good eye. Mr. Evans, can you make that correction?
Yes.
Very good. Anyone else? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes from 2019's meeting of June 18th? Was that a motion with a correction?
I will move to with the correction.
I'd like to amend that also. I do not believe this
Cruz. You're out of order.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the floor. If you want to amend the motion, there has to be a second, and then you can move an amendment.
Okay.
So do you want to second that and then offer an amendment?
Second that.
Okay, very good. We're just trying to follow Robert's rules here, folks. Okay, so that's been seconded, so there is a motion laid on the table for us to consider now. Mr. Desmond.
I don't recall if Ms. Cruz was at last month's meeting. She's not in the roll call, and she's noted as seconding also.
I was in attendance.
Okay. Well, Never mind, I withdraw that
Okay.
amendment.
There isn't a second, so there's no withdrawal. It just fails for a second.
The roll call needs to be corrected to include Mrs. Cruz.
To reflect her attendance.
Yes.
Then all right, where are we at here?
Mr. Desmond is recognized.
I make a motion, or to amend the motion to correct the roll call as well, in addition
Okay.
to the original motion.
Is there a second to the
Second.
amendment? Okay, very good. So we're now, the way we always work ourselves is we work down. So the amendment is first item to be considered, and then we go to the main motion. If the amendment is adhered to, it changes the second motion to essentially incorporate that amendment. Mr. Evans?
And who seconded the amendment?
Mr. Eisenbacher?
Thank you.
So is there any discussion further on the amendment? Seeing none, Mr. Evans, we're prepared for a vote on the amendment.
Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Agawas?
Yes.
Mr. Desmond?
Yes.
Okay, so essentially the main motion has been changed now. So on the final motion, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Evans, we're prepared for a vote.
Mr. Desmond?
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook?
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes,
Mr. Agawas?
Yes.
motion carries. So we are now on the item of, or item 4, approval of the agenda. Are there any questions about the agenda tonight by a member of the board? Hearing none, I think do we have a vote on this, Mr. Evans?
No.
Or it's just received, that's correct. I serve on a couple different boards, so we do it all differently no matter where I'm at. Item number 5 is the hearing of cases, and we have item number A related to 191 Hampshire. Mr. Evans, can you please present to us on this matter?
Yes, and this is a variance in order to add an addition to an existing single-family residence at 191 Hampshire. Now, this is an aerial of the neighborhood, and this property is located east of Livernois and north of Long Lake Road, and it's in the center of the screen there, highlighted. That's a much closer view. Now, this is the survey they've provided, and this is the existing conditions of the property, and this survey is actually tilted about 90 degrees to the right, so this is the house, and they want to add on to the one side of the property as I've outlined in the hatch marks. Now, this is the proposed site plan, and they want to provide an addition to the right side of the house. The addition will consist of a garage as well as living area, and they're requesting 2 variances from this board in order to build as proposed. Now, the ordinance requires that any additions to this home be set back 10 feet from the side property line. They're proposing an 8.53-foot setback on the side of the, by the garage. And the ordinance also says that when you add the total of both side yard setbacks, it has to equal 25 feet. And with the proposal and the existing, that total will be 22-foot total setback. So in order to proceed with what they want to do, they need those 2 variances from this board. I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Are there questions of a member of the board for city staff or legal counsel? Hearing none, we can proceed. I just realized that we'd never made introductions to those who are in attendance here tonight. So let me apologize quickly. For those who are in attendance, I am going to introduce the people who are up here on the dais to those who are in attendance. And so over here is Mr. Bossenbrook. Did I say that right?
Correct.
He's new, so give me a break, okay? This is Ms. Cruz. She's relatively new to this board. She's also a planning commissioner for the city of Troy, but she serves as an embed to this board. They have 1 member that serves annually on this board. This is Vice Chairman Agawas. I'm Glenn Clark. I'm your chairman. This is Mr. Eisenbacher. We have Mr. Desmond over here, and we have Mr. McCauley over on the side. So these are all voting members of this particular body appointed by City Council. And then over on the side, we have Mr. Evans, who is our city administrator, and he serves during the day when his Superman cape is on in the city hall here, and then serves as our supporting administrator here on this board. And this is Mr. Motsney, who is an assistant city attorney by day, but will serve as our legal advisor here this evening. So I'm sorry we normally do that at the beginning, but we'll move right on to the petitioner. So if the petitioner wants to come forward, or the petitioner's representatives want to come forward and present to us, you can do that at this time.
Hello, my name is William Finicum. I'm the project architect, and I would like my client, Nikki Schuler, to give a brief introduction, and then I'd like to address the hardships.
Sure.
If that's okay. Thank you.
You can stay up here. You don't have to run away.
Hi, it's so nice to be
Good
here
evening.
tonight. I feel particularly honored to be here because of the reason that we're here, which is because of our oldest, most beautiful son, Parker, who's 11. And it's because Parker is going to live long enough for me to build an addition onto my home to support him for the rest of his life, which is something 11 years ago I would have said, no, we have no shot at ever doing that. So it's a huge honor to be here and stand to ask for something so awesome. When we bought this home, we thought Parker was going to be our only child. We thought maybe he would live till he was 10, and this was such an awesome space to provide for him. It was a ranch. I didn't have to carry him upstairs. We originally lived in a larger 4-bedroom home in Troy that we bought when we found out we were pregnant with Parker. It was the perfect dream. We couldn't wait to live here and raise our family. We had a big backyard, 4 bedrooms, perfect. And then Parker was born with a million issues and 182 hospitalizations later, and a child who has faced more than you can ever imagine. In fact, that little pool up there that you see is his Make-A-Wish swim spa that he got to celebrate everything that he has endured. We decided that dream, I said to my husband one day, this is not the dream. The dream that we bought this house for isn't the dream that we were given, and that's okay, because he's so awesome. So we found this ranch, and I said to my husband, because by the way, my parents moved to Troy in 1971, so I remember Troy as a farming community. My parents tell a great story about trying to put the light in on Rochester and Wattles, going to the police station back then. So Troy is obviously very close to my heart. So we looked everywhere, and we looked from Northfield to Plymouth, from Bloomfield to Birmingham, and there, just a mile down the road from our original home that didn't match our original dream, was this ranch that I told my husband I would not walk in. I said, I'm not living there, I'm not going in, I'm not getting out of the car. But he went in, and Parker, who was little at the time, laid in the backyard and did it was July, but he did, in essence, snow angels. And I said, I don't know why, but this feels right. The perfect house, and it has been, except what we didn't dream is that we'd have 2 other children who would join our home very unexpectedly along the line. In fact, the day we sold our first dream home, in 4 hours for above asking, the next morning I found out that I was unexpectedly expecting our second son, and then quickly after, our 3rd daughter. So she lived in the basement for a little while because we were completely out of space. So I'll just end with saying that, again, it's a huge honor to be here to be able to ask for this. 2 years ago, I had a very trying back injury. It was the 2nd back injury that I had endured because Parker, our son, who's going to be 12 in the fall, does not walk, nor does he talk, nor does he eat. So he does require 24-hour care, and I'm lifting him a lot. And like I said, what I've never dreamed in a million years that he'd be 80 pounds when we moved into this house. And so after that back injury, I said to my husband, I feel like this is the call we've got to do something to our house because we have to be able to take care of Parker for a more extended period of time than we would have ever dreamed. And in this original ranch that we thought only Parker was going to live in, is just the space doesn't fit him. And I can't lift him, and there's no bathroom, and there's no way to get him into the home or out of the home or into a tub, out of a tub, into his medical bed or out of his medical bed. He's often too ill to go to school, so he spends an awful lot of time in our house. So I am a teacher by trade, as luck would have it, and so I'm hoping to actually use his space as part living space, part homeschool space. And then also he can get out to his very cool Make-A-Wish pool. So I appreciate you taking the time to hear our story tonight. And again, I'm just going to end with that. I feel so lucky to even have this story to tell, and I have this question to ask. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. There you have it.
Can you please identify yourself once again?
I'm William Finicum, Finicum Brownlee Architects.
Thank you.
Our objectives are two things. One is to have a bedroom, therapy, bathroom wing of the house for Parker. And the second is to have a safe, flat, weatherproof area to discharge him from the van into the house. Now, along with this addition, they're getting a new van, which Parker's growing, so they're no longer able to just pick him up out of the car easily and carry him in. They have they're getting a van where he will be in his wheelchair and be discharged from the van in the wheelchair and be wheeled right directly into the house. So that is a big need that we have here. The enclosed garage will ensure Parker's safety. The driveway has a steep slope. I'll say steep because it's steeper than is allowable for a ramp. It is currently 11.5% slope, and if we were to change the driveway to put a flat area outside of the garage so you could park outside and discharge on a flat area, it would make the driveway 23%, which is very, very steep. So the two variances Mr. Evans described. One is a dimensional variance on the east side, which is 1.47 feet. It's only 20.5 inches, this much. We have the area of the house that's affected is 42 feet long, so it's 63 square feet that requires the variance. The other variance is for the combined side yard setback. So if we apply the overage of the 3 feet that were too large for the combined area, if we apply that to the west side of the house, you can see on the site plan that it would just clip that corner. And the only thing that would be affecting or causing that variance is an area, I would just say, roughly half the size of this dais, this lectern. That's the corner of the west side of the house that would be encroaching. Now, I'd like to address all of the areas of your ordinance. Please bear with me. I'll try to be brief, but this is very important to the Schulers, and I'd like to cover everything. There are 5 standards for the measure of practical difficulty, and I feel we meet all 5 of those measures. Number 1 are the exceptional characteristics of the property. We have here a very irregular shaped site. It's a pentagram, and it radiates from 57 feet at the street, or at the cul-de-sac. It radiates out, and what happens because of that is the driveway is quite pinched, and you can't have a direct, straight approach into a garage. It has to come up and curve in. That barely works for the existing garage, and it will not work for an enlarged garage. The enlarged garage is necessary because we have to treat it like a van accessible parking space, which is 11 feet wide plus 5 feet of discharge, or 8 feet of parking and 8 feet of discharge. So it's a total of 16 feet inside. We are taking a two-car garage and making it into a two-car garage. But the two-car garage will have an area that the wheelchair can be discharged into. And that will lead directly to a ramp, which will lead directly into the suite. The lot being tapered means even at the front setback line, the lot is only 90 feet wide. The standard size of a rectangular lot or a standard lot in this zoning is 100 feet. So even at the setback line, we're still 10 feet narrower than necessary. And if we had that 10 feet, this would all be perfectly workable. But we don't, because it's not a rectangle, it's a trapezoid. Another situation is that the house is directly in the center of the lot. There's barely space to be added to the left or barely space to be added to the right. Had it been offset and built so that it favored one side or the other, again, it would be easier to deal with. The second statement of practical difficulty standard is the characteristics which make compliance with the dimensional requirements difficult are purely those of the subject property. Now this goes to what I was just mentioning, the house being situated in the center. The way the house is organized also is dictating how the addition is being built. We have the garage on the east side. We're enlarging the garage. We need to have direct access. Adjacency of the garage and the suite is very important because we need to get Parker into the suite, have all of his equipment there when he gets home, and all of his equipment that he may need to take on the road with him right there to be able to put into the van and leave. Then go, once he's arrived, then he can go straight to his bedroom therapy area and the bathroom and so forth. Part of the needs here are, there's a great deal of storage that's required. He has wheelchairs, he has shower chairs, he has eating chairs, he has stand mechanisms, he has therapy tables, he has all these things that we need to store when they're not being in use, and they need to be nearby. The third thing is the dimensional requirements of barrier-free design and barrier-free access are universal. That means we can't cheat. We can't say, oh, it's okay, we'll just make this a little tighter. Because if we make it a little tighter, we can't turn the wheelchair from the corner into the door, or we can't get Parker out into a tub. All of these things. We need the maneuvering space. We are following the guidelines of barrier-free design. They're not code mandated because this is a single-family house, but we just can't ignore them because we have this need. And the small variances, we're only 20 inches closer to the property line. This is strictly because we need the van discharge space and because we need the turnaround space. In hallways, we need the free clearance in front of the tub, the shower, the toilet, and the sink, and so forth. The fourth thing is that the hardships are driven by the irregular shaped lot and the position of the house on the lot. I already addressed that, but it's important to note that neither the Schulers or the previous owners had anything to do with where the house is located on the property or the shape of the lot. That was determined back in the 70s when the subdivision was built. And there wasn't any, we have to deal with what's there. There have been no changes to the house since the 70s, except perhaps in closing the rear porch. The fifth thing happens to be 5 criteria for granting a variance. The first is the proposed variance will not be harmful to or alter the essential character of the area. Now, we've been very, very careful to make this, to minimize the scale of this addition and to keep it low and to make it in harmony with the neighboring properties. The adjacent house is 2 stories. This is only a 1-story house. And I think a big plus is that instead of having a large van in the driveway, this van is going to be concealed within a garage, which is behind the front setback and will be out of sight. Number 2 is the proposed variance will not impair the supply of light and air to the adjacent property. You can see from the property line that because of the radial property line, the houses are splayed away from each other like this. So even if this house gets bigger, this space gets enlarged. And there are photographs that we have that show that backyard space expanding. So it's the closest that the 2 houses come is the equivalent of double the side yard setback. So, and that's, again, it's a straight wall and then, you know, an angle coming into it. So it's just a point, a relationship of a point to a plane. It's very minimal. Number 3 is the proposed variance will not increase the congestion of public streets or increase the danger of fire or endanger the public safety. Again, it's a two-car garage made into a 2-car garage. This new van is replacing a car. It is not adding traffic. So it's also making a safer situation because it will not necessitate cars parking in the cul-de-sac, which is very difficult. It will provide a parking space indoors for the van, and then there'd be additional guest parking in the driveway. Number 4 is the proposed variance will not...
Stop you, sir. We have that information here. So
Okay,
if...
it doesn't need to go in the record?
It's in the record.
Okay.
Our record. If there's a member of the board who wants to inquire about any of what you've submitted here in writing, they'll do it at this point in time. So we have this information.
Okay, if you feel I've covered it.
Well, if there's a member who wants to inquire, they're going to do it at this time.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Well, we just would ask that you see yourselves clear to grant these variances to enable the Schulers to the full use of their property, but to provide the very best care for their son, Parker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a member of the board who would like to inquire of this representative or the petitioner? Mr.
Yep.
Vice Chairman Agos.
Yeah, you did a good job laying out the practical difficulty in those subpoints. When you're implementing the changes, I noticed that there was a tree on that one side. Will that tree have to come out as far as adding the expansion?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. When I look at it. yeah.
Okay.
And I look at it, I think it.
Okay.
I'm sad about it
All right.
because
Right.
it's a special tree to us, but I think it would, from my view, it would probably have to go.
Are there any plans to replace it with other shrubbery or arborvitaes or other trees or anything to kind of help with the other neighbor looking at the expansion?
We haven't addressed landscaping whatsoever, but we certainly will want to provide whatever the neighbor, if the neighbor needs screening or whatever, we'll entertain it. But I don't know.
I guess that leads me to the next natural question. What does the neighbor think about the proposed expansion? Or, hey, I'm ahead of myself. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. We'll find out soon. Yes, okay. Never mind.
Any other member of the board? So just to be clear, we would not have the city interact with the neighbor about screening or other trees afterwards. It'll happen at this board table here tonight. So if you get your variance, we could write it in to the variance that you are required to do X, Y, or Z. If we don't write it in, you can talk all you want with a neighbor and do what you feel is best, but it won't be required. So we will consider it here at this board table here tonight. Since there isn't another member of the board for you or your representative, if you could have a seat, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to open the public hearing, and if there's somebody here that would like to address the board on this matter, please step to the podium and you will be recognized. Please identify yourself.
My name is Larry Lido. I am the homeowner at 199 Hampshire, which is directly to the, yes. And Paul, is this part of the PDF? Can you go to page 13 or 14? Are you able to?
So you're referring to page 13 or 14 of the actual agenda that I sent you earlier today?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know if this was part of that whole PDF or not.
Page 14 is the letter, so is it page 15 possibly, which I'm showing now? Gotcha. That's the one, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So this will give you a little bit more practical view of the situation. So that's my house to the right, the Schulers are to the left. And first off, Parker's an amazing little boy. It's been great to know the Schulers. They're two little kids as well. They're just unbelievable people. But when you have certain concerns as a homeowner, you want to meet in a happy medium or something like that. So my concern is, looking out my front window, we're already pretty close to the Schulers, and adding on that addition and going even further than what the variance is providing has a concern for me. Mr. Finnegan said that on item and on number E, item 4, the proposed variance will not diminish or impair the established property value within the established area. Probably not for many people, but my concern is my home. And as Mr. Aguas stated, my concern is, with that tree coming down, the lack of privacy, just and the property value and coming that close. So that's my concern. At the very least, probably have some type of, if it is granted, I'd like to see some type of privacy barrier or something written into the, the request. I'm very well versed in handicap access. When I bought the home two owners behind us, or before us, a little kid was hit by a van. They retrofitted the home, put an elevator on the back of the house, very inconspicuous, built the addition, which is on the east side of the house, for his play therapy room as well. So it wasn't a hindrance as far as, coming out. Our addition, which is over the garage as well, actually comes vertically up off of our property. And then the elevator, it was in the back, provides access for Drew to enter the house. He had the handicap access, all access room. So that's, my other thing is there any other options? The west side, or southwest side, because the Schuler's house actually sits on a north-south latitude, is, I don't understand why they can't even look at going on the west side. I think there's more room to build on the west side of the house than there is on our side of the house. So, that's just my concern. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have a
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes, obviously, looking at the layout and the way that this proposal is situated, it appears that overwhelmingly you're the only homeowner impacted. I'm also looking at it like if they were to take their existing setup and just install a fence, it would also be visible by your living room.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Yeah, because it'd be behind the front face. So I'd like to balance their request for a little bit more space with your view out of your living room. Is there something that you would see, like a greenery on the side of the building? Because I see there's already no window on that side.
There's no window on that side of the house, which is, that's the bonus. The biggest, is when we're looking out or sitting in the living room looking out.
Yeah, because it looks like there'd be no way from their house to look into your living room, which would be a big detriment for you.
Correct.
If that were to be screened with arborvitaes,
I think that would be very, very feasible. Maybe arborvitaes coming, off of along the addition and just So where that tree line is, or where that tree is right there, and kind of
6 or 8.
Yeah. Because if it's going to come off that far, because the variance is actually the front part of that they're requesting is the front part of that red circle, correct?
Yes, I believe looking at the plans, the back part is set back enough that it would not need a variance. It's only that front red.
Part.
And that's just looking at their plans to get enough space for the angled garage.
Yeah, it's a bummer that tree is going to go down. That's a nice tree. So, but yeah, I think that would be, if we could do something like that, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you for your input.
Any other member of the public who would like to address the board on this matter? Please step to the podium. Any member of the public who would like to address the board on this matter, please step to the podium. Close the public hearing out, and I'm going to call on Vice Chairman Nagawas to share written or electronic communications to the board on this matter.
Nothing further.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. So we bring it back to the board table for consideration, further questions, inquiries, or possible action. Mr. Eisenbacher.
I would like to ask the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to come to the microphone for a question. Hello. Again, would you be willing to add a series of arborvitae type evergreen plantings to break up the visual appeal, or the visual, I don't know, how do we say it? The look of the garage from your neighbors, or from the neighbor's living room?
Yes, that's not a problem at all. I think, number one, we don't have windows on that side of the building. He doesn't have windows on his side of the house. So I think that screening would be best served up towards the front of the garage to soften his view from his living room. And we'll work with him to come up with a good solution to that.
Usually we have to have something that's measurable. So I
Okay?
would say 8 arborvitae
Well,
style plantings. That would cover that.
if you could start at the
Stepped out.
corner of his house and then come forward, I think he already has some planting near that corner. So maybe to integrate, it would start a little sooner, and I would think 3 or 4 would be plenty. I don't know that you want to create a wall of hedge.
Okay.
Maybe it's just, just softening it up by,
3 or 4 within the space that he,
from the front, from like, even with
Corner.
his corner of his house forward
yes.
towards the cul-de-sac. Yeah, along the property line, maybe staggering, and maybe he's willing to have, work it into a mutual bed between the 2 properties. It's a design thing, which I'd be very happy to do.
Yes.
But there's a right way and a wrong way, and to just say boom, 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 boom might not be the right way. But I would agree.
We have to have something
If that gets
measurable.
us moving forward, we can do that. And if we, I'll just say, we're going to make them happy
Okay.
to the, within reason, like 3 or 4
I would just be
arborvitae.
clear once again, it's not something that's going to be worked out afterwards. It's going to be worked out at this board table.
Okay.
So if these people on this board are not happy, the variance isn't going to be passed tonight.
Okay.
So, and sir, I'm the chairman.
Sorry.
I'll call on a member when I'm ready to address them.
Sorry.
Thank you. I would just say to my colleague that I think a hedge would be good. I mean, I see that image that Mr. Evans put up here, and the proposed building gets really close to this gentleman's home. I don't know that I'd want that. I understand the hardship of an irregular shaped property. I also don't really understand what the hardship of good parents are in this circumstance of dealing with a young man who has special needs. But I kind of have an idea because I know some people with special needs. So, I mean, as Mr. Eisenbacher is addressing, there is a balancing act to that. But I don't know what would be wrong with trying to put a hedge up that literally hides that expansion as much as humanly possible. Would I want an encroachment into near my home like that? Like I said, I don't think I would. And I understand the good gentleman who came up to us who expressed a concern. So 3 or 4 plans, I don't know, cuts it for me. So you seem to think it's enough, and I'm not too sure.
I think that 4 is certainly enough. But if it's 5, I don't know if I'm negotiating with you or with him. But I think
You're gonna
I'm
negotiate with
an
this board,
architect,
sir.
and my wife's a landscape designer, and I deal with that sort of thing all the time. If we made a hedge straight over from his corner straight forward, it would not be more than 4 arborvitae. Because you plant them apart and they grow together. You don't plant them so that they're touching. They weave each other together and make the wall. So one thing that was not shown were the perspectives to show that side of the building. I'll say the other aspect here is, the alternative is if we don't have the garage enlarged and can conceal the van, then there's a big van sitting in the driveway.
We can't consider that.
Okay.
That's not a consideration for this board.
Throw that out there for him to,
Parking in a vehicle
Not here.
on the, concrete or the asphalt or whatever it is not a consideration for this board to consider.
all right. I would propose 4 arborvitae from the corner of his forward. That would certainly conceal our house, and it can be planted as tight together so it grows into a hedge and be maintained to a height of 8 feet.
Okay. I think Mr. McCauley knows quite a bit about this field.
those arborvitaes should be set back from the front part of the house by at least 2 feet as they do grow, and that way they won't extend beyond the front of the house, and at that point in time, it even obstruct the neighbor's view even more. So you don't want to plant something right at the front edge, then expand out, then all of a sudden he'll lose his view completely when you start taking another 2, maybe 3 feet out from that expanding arborvitae. So that would be set back at least 2 feet from the corner of the house, the front corner, so that way it could grow and expand and not block any view. Because I look at this plan, I like the plan, I think it's a great plan. I love the picture you gave with the red outline and the yellow property line. I think that visual is outstanding. And I keep flipping back and forth between pictures because I'm trying to see what it would be like if I was standing in the front window of your neighbor's house to see what that would look like. Is that going to block my view through the cul-de-sac? That would be my biggest concern if all of a sudden now I have a blind spot to the cul-de-sac if I look out my front window from the neighbor's house. And to be honest with you, I can't tell. And I mean, that might be a question that we pull the neighbor back in to kind of get an idea of how much of the view he gets and what he doesn't get, because otherwise I think it's an outstanding plan. I think it fits perfectly for the area. My concern is the encroachment and what it would do to the neighbor's house potentially if he wanted to even sell. Because all of a sudden now his view's blocked from his front window like that. So it would diminish his property value.
Mr. McCauley, since you're in the field, I think you'd be perhaps our only expert up here at this table. How many plants do you think would suffice?
I think 4 would be more than adequate, because you don't want to go, he doesn't need to go back past the front of the house view of the neighbor, so there's no reason to extend back behind that. So if he did 4 with a 2-foot setback from the front farthest point forward of the new construction, 2 feet to the rear, and then plan them accordingly, that would be more than enough then from that standpoint. So at worst, as they grow, the neighbor might see 6 inches of the tip of the garage, but the shrub would not grow to the point where it would obstruct his view beyond the garage.
Okay, another member of the board. Can you have a seat, please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I say that's a very sensible solution that is acceptable. Thank you.
Is there a member of the board who would like to be recognized? Mr. Eisenbacher.
Hearing no one else speaking, I will make a resolution to approve the variance as requested with the additional stipulation of 4 arborvitae trees to be planted 2 feet setback from the front property line, or not the property line, the front face of the addition to obscure the view from the neighbor.
Second.
Second. Is that Mr.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Agawas? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Evans, we're prepared for a vote.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Agawas,
Yes.
Mr. Desmond,
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations. We move on to item number B, which is related to 5366 Rochester Road. Mr. Evans, could you present on this matter?
Yes, this is in regards to the property on Rochester. They're requesting several variances in order to accommodate a structure that already exists. The subject property is located on the east side of Rochester Road, north of Long Lake Road. The area is zoned single-family residential, and the properties on either side are used for single-family residential. Property in the back is a retention area, county retention area. And there's a close-up of the site. A little history with this matter. In 2017, the applicant applied for and received a building permit to construct a detached garage, 768 square feet. I placed all the permit documents in the agenda packet, but I pulled some select ones out for the presentation here. Now, this is the site plan they've provided that was approved with the building permit. Couple things to note here. A, while this site plan appears to reflect perhaps a proposed property split, that property split has not occurred. This middle line running left to right does not exist. So the borders of this property is the outside of this square here. The building permit allowed the detached structure, well, right where you see it there, kind of in the middle of the property, just behind the southeast portion of the house. The applicant built a structure that looks like this. There's the side view, the rear view. This is what appears to be the same document, and they built it in a different location than what was approved, as well as a different, apparently different configuration than what the building permit called for. I've outlined it there in blue. The applicant's indicated in his variance application that the proposed, the structure that's there now is 4 feet 10 inches from the side property line. The ordinance requires it to be 6 feet. It also, we're confident based on the application that this building is more than 1.5 stories, and the ordinance limits accessory buildings to 1 story. This matter, the city was forced to issue a court appearance ticket on this matter, and it's currently in the district court. Mr. Motsi can comment on that. The city, the house was constructed without modifying or changing to the building permit because we were not requested, nor there were any inspections requested. We didn't know that this happened until we got a complaint that it was up and started getting questions in code enforcement. Mr. Motsi, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just that there was 2 municipal civil infraction judgments entered by the magistrate in the district court assessing fines and also requiring that the structure be removed or brought into compliance. I see that the applicant filed copies of appeals that were filed in circuit court. Those appeals were dismissed and are not pending because the appeal was not proper. We filed a motion to enforce the district court judgments with what's known as a show cause order. Mr. McAuliffe called me and asked about applying for a variance. I said he could do that, and that's what he's done. But while the variance is pending, the zoning ordinance says we cannot, there's a stay of any enforcement action. So the hearing in the district court was postponed until something happens here. So that's, I thought I should mention that because I saw there was copies of the appeals with the packet. Those appeals were dismissed, actually.
And if I could just wrap it up, and a clarification, now in the agenda it was printed that the setback was going to be 1 foot 6 inches from the side property line, but as indicated with this site plan, it's 4 feet 10 inches. So according to the site plan that he's provided in the application, he actually needs less of a variance than what was printed in the agenda. And the other variance request would be to have an accessory structure that's more than 1.5 stories tall. So with that, I'll bring it back to the board for any questions.
Any questions for city staff? Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yeah, looking at the pictures that were provided in the agenda, it's a little bit confusing. Is that, okay, so they got a 1-story that's facing out towards Rochester with a garage for parking a car on, and it looks like it's a wooden floor when you look at the subsequent pictures behind this, or is that?
Well, I think
another level that we're looking at in the pictures? Or is this a better question for the petitioner? Did he provide these pictures?
Yeah, it is, and we were never aware of exactly what was constructed or how it was constructed until it was about this far along. So we have nothing we can fall back on in regards to construction prints to tell us For example, exact dimensions, exact heights, materials used. We just don't have that. So I can only answer what we know, and that's what we know.
And then the second question is the definition of stories within our zoning ordinance. Obviously, when you've got a full garage door and a full entry door, that's a full story. Looking at the picture from the rear, it appears that it also has a full garage door and a full entry door, so that appears to be another story, but it appears to be below grade. Does that change the definition of what a story is?
You know, I put that in the presentation, the definition from. What we're confident, and there's a number of tests that we can use based on amount of square footage as above or below floor, and you mentioned grade as well. The one thing we're reasonably confident is that the height above one of the floors is at least 200 square feet of floor space with at least 7 feet 4 inches of clearance. So we're confident, even though we don't have exact measurements, but based on what we've seen, that it does qualify as being more than one story.
Based on the information in our packet, would you define this, and based on our zoning ordinance, is this a 1.5 story building or is this a 2.5 story building?
Well, in reviewing this for the write-up, it's hard to say without exact measurements. We had a high confidence level that it was at least over 1, put it that way.
Okay.
If this proceeds and they receive approval, we are going to require a professional to provide us engineering and more exact measurements. That perhaps is a question that we may be able to answer in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for our city staff? Sure, Desmond.
If this was to be listed on the MLS, it'd be listed as 1.5 stories, and that is the builder's license, building code definition of a story as well. So it's 1.5 stories, pretty safe description of this. That's it.
Anyone else for our city staff? Questions, inquiries? Okay, we are going to call the petitioner forward, or representative. Please identify yourself at the podium.
How you doing? My name is Joseph McAuliffe. I reside at 5366 Rochester Road.
Good evening.
I started this project a little over 1.5 years ago. I was in Traverse City when the concrete guys did the footing and I have pictures of all that. They got caught in the rain and they overdug that footing. That footing is 3 feet wide and 5 feet deep all the way around the property. They poured the floor, they put wire mesh down, steel, corrugated steel in the floor. From grade level, I've been a builder for 45 years. From grade level, that's 1.5 stories. If you're going from the cement to the first floor, it's a little less than 8 feet. From the second floor to the side walls, the knee walls, are 5 feet. The pitch to the roof is I'd say it's a 9 or 10, 12 pitch. So it's 1.5 stories. The back side of the house is like a storage area. Doesn't have concrete or anything like that. It just has doors on it to put tractors, lawn equipment, stuff like that in there. This property is zoned multiple. So I could have 10 homes on it if I filed it, with the court or with the, but I built this thing for my family, for storage, because the house isn't big enough for 4 people, I have cars, a collection of cars, and 2 cars for that garage would be perfect. I have a 2-car garage attached. That's got a lot of the mechanical things in it, The side yard setback, when he dug that footing out, he got caught in the rain. He poured that footing 3 feet wide by 5 feet deep. When he put the floor down, he probably didn't realize what the setback was. There's a storm sewer that runs along the northern side of that property. It's a 24-inch storm, runs right from Rochester Road all the way down to the creek in the backyard. So he probably thought this is an easement, but it is on the next door neighbor's property, the storm sewer, which happens to be a tenant, not the owner. I get along pretty good with both tenants, you know. We've had our differences because of the, work that's been done. But I plan on, if they grant me the variance, I plan on restoring the side of it that's got gravel on it and putting grass on it. I did take some pictures today. The owner was out there. We've had some different conversations. His son is a real estate broker, and I know him pretty well. The original deal was that they wanted to buy our property, and I turned it down. They made an offer, a ridiculous offer, and I turned it down. And I think that was the cause of the problem. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Anything for this petitioner by a board member?
I have a question.
Mr. Desmond.
You mentioned that this was zoned multifamily?
Yeah, it's like my real estate broker went to the city and talked to the planning department, and I think they said it was cluster or multiple or something like, or could be rezoned that.
Okay. I see on the public record here zoning of residential improved.
Yeah. When he talked to the city, they mentioned that across the street, down the street, everything is, nobody wants the condos in there, but they're coming in. When he talked to the city, they told him that if he applied or went to zoning, that they'd probably get approved for multiple zoning. I was going to split this property into two parcels, but I never split it. I just kept it. I have 3 grandchildren. Give them room to run,
So it could be multifamily. It's not currently.
Not now, not currently, but it could be.
Thank you.
I've got pictures, well, same thing as that, but the back side of which is at grade, is 6.5 feet high in the back of the house, or back of the garage. And to the first floor, the house next door has 2.5 stories with a basement. The garage does. So, and I have 12 properties that within a quarter of a mile of my house that have non-conforming garages, which are big barns. Matter of fact, right across the street, the guy's got it for sale, and I wanted to build condos there. That's got 2.5-story garage, a barn with a basement in it. It's a Michigan basement, old Michigan basement, but it's still. Now, what I proposed that I turned into the city, I could take 1.5 feet off this garage and not affect it. But other than doing that, I would just apply for a variance. The first time I went to apply for the variance, I turned in the application and a check, and I had a phone call the next day said I'm wasting my time. And I gave that to the attorney, and he says, when I went to court, the judge says, or the magistrate says, you file that. Okay? I figured I was wasting my time to come to the council meeting. When it went to circuit court, the judge there recommended you go to the council meeting. I don't care what anybody says. So here I am now. Yeah.
So if you want to share any of those pictures with us, you haven't already done so by submitting
this. I have submitted here. I've got.
Not to show us. You're going to hand them over to this gentleman on the far right, and then he's going to look at them, and then we're going to put them in the public record.
That's ridiculous.
Please.
8 inches off.
You can't speak from there, sir. It's not allowed. You have to speak from the microphone to be on the public record.
That picture is with taking a foot and 8 inches off the house.
Okay. So that will go in the public record. Mr. McCauley?
Does the petitioner have a picture of the footings that were poured? Was that the footings for the basement of it, or was that the side walls?
It's not a basement, it's the footings that are, they're 5 feet deep and 3 feet wide. He overdug the darn thing when he poured it. I have the concrete bill. If you estimate the concrete bill just for the footings, he paid for the overage, I did. But he went over about $1,500 in the footing. He got caught in the rain. So he went over in the footings.
Do you have a photograph of those by any chance?
Yeah. And I submitted new plans to the city, and they were rejected. They wanted an engineer to do them, and I went to an engineer, and he wanted $5,200 to do it, and that was the cheapest bid. I got all the receipts for the concrete, the billing for the concrete. I must have the other file. But he's got pictures of the footing, the steel, everything that he put in the ground. And after he was completed, he was Spanish descent, he got deported. So I couldn't go back after him.
So just a quick question while you're getting yourself organized there. So you built this 1 foot 6 inches from the property line.
No,
What am I misreading?
corrected it.
4 feet 10 inches according to his site plan.
Yeah, 4 foot 10 inches is what I have. I have 6 feet 3 inches in the back. It runs on an angle.
Well, what's
So I'm
what's
within
required?
6 feet.
I'm within the boundaries of the back of the unit. It's 6 feet 3 inches from the property line.
The hearing notice is wrong. It actually suggests that he's much closer, well, closer than what the site plan shows. So
He's
that's a
1 feet.
that's a zoom in at the site plan.
We just denied somebody 1 foot 3 inches or 1 foot 4 inches. I mean, what gave you the idea that you could do that?
When they dug that basement, they dug it on, they got caught in the rain, and they dug it on.
I don't understand getting caught in the rain. Buildings don't go up by getting caught in the rain.
Right.
You know, drive down the road here to one of the biggest buildings in town, Somerset Collection. I'm sure at one point in time when they were building, it was raining.
Right.
So that went to the city, zoning code. So I'm really not understanding getting caught in the rain, how a building goes up
Well, I mean,
incorrectly.
They poured the footing, and they did the steel, the re-rod, and the floor before I even got back. So it was already done.
Mr. Desmond.
You mentioned you've been a builder for 45 years. Are you a licensed builder?
I was, yeah.
Not currently?
I retired.
Okay.
I built numerous houses. I built the very first condo. It had to go to the Supreme Court. The very first condo in a private road in the city of Troy.
That doesn't apply here. Mr. Eisenbach.
Okay. I have a few things. First, so So when you had the construction company, or the subcontractor come to do the footings and the pour, you didn't have stakes telling them where to do? You didn't have a survey?
He had the survey that I had a gentleman do the survey.
So someone did stake the property?
Yeah. But when he dug it, it caved in. It rained for like 2 days and it caved in. So he didn't backfill it and set the stakes again, he just poured it. So he poured it wide, 3 feet wide. On the front.
So it caved in and then he dug it wider. This doesn't make sense.
No, it fell in wider. He dug it deeper, so when it fell in, it went wider. He had an excavator.
The walls aren't straight? I mean...
They're straight, but over poured. An average footing like that would be either 8 or 12 inch by 42 inch.
Okay, so basically you had a width, and he ignored the width because the sides fell in.
Right.
Because one of our criteria, I don't know if you've read these criteria, is the characteristics that make compliance with the dimensional requirements. Let me read this again. The characteristics which make compliance with dimensional requirements difficult must not have been created by the current or previous owner. This sounds like it was created by you because it wasn't properly measured and staked.
It was staked and it was measured. Even a survey was done. But when he dug it in the rain, he overdug it. He didn't call me. He didn't do anything. He just poured it. You know. And when he poured it in some places it was 32 inches, most places 36 inches wide by 5 feet deep. So he overdug it.
Okay, so after this foundation was put in, did you have an inspection by the city?
He was supposed to, he couldn't hardly speak English.
Was he a licensed contractor in Michigan?
I think so. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. And the one thing that I'm really having a hard time understanding with your request is we need to have something to hold on to that is a feature that runs with the land that is a reason why this variance is needed. You've got a very standard shaped site. There's no funny shapes.
Right.
You do have some slope, but the slope isn't what causes the problems.
Right.
There doesn't seem to be any natural features that complied to this, caused a compliance issue. Can you help me understand what is the hardship?
The hardship is that I paid this guy to dig the footing, pour the footing and the slab and everything, and he did it wrong. He went overboard on it. The front is 4'9" or 4'10" setback. The back is 6'3". Probably 10 or 12 feet of the front part of the garage is it's not within the 6 foot setback. Okay. The back is.
Okay, and then my final question is for the multiple stories, our zoning ordinance is for a 1-story garage. I can understand that your property is not level, so you may have had to have a basement for your garage because of the slope, but that second or half-story high, I don't see a hardship and I don't see a way that I can even consider a variance for that because it's not something that...
I built about 300 homes in the city of Troy, and the stories of the garage are trusses that are 12 pitches. Mm-hmm. So that's more than a story and a half. And they approved the plans. So I mean, it's the upstairs.
Well, the height isn't the problem.
Right.
It's the windows and the livable, or the storage space.
Well, the storage is storage. If you say take the wing walls out, I could take the wing walls out. But I had that there for the effect. Mr. McCulley was there to see that it had a view out the back. There's deer and, animals back there. that the grandchildren can look out and see. And the front is to overlook the driveway to see if anybody's coming in, you know. But it does have side windows. I could take that pitch off, you know, and it'd still have room up there for storage. But it's just a character of the building.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions.
Right. The one next door, you've seen the house next door, is 2.5 stories, the barn or garage, and it's got a basement. So, I mean, I'm less than half of that.
Mr. McCauley.
I got a question for the petitioner. I'm looking at a stamped certificate of survey, September 8th, 2017. It's page 63 in our packet. It shows a new garage, and it would be on the south side. Was that the application that was pulled for the one that's currently built, or is there a second application for the one that's currently built?
There's a second survey that was turned into the city, or a modified application. Originally, I was going to build it on this side, but if I split the lot and get 2 lots out of it, that back would encroach in that.
Okay, so I'm looking at that. So you're telling me there's a second one modified for that?
Yeah, there's another plot plan that I turned in that the garage is put on the other side, which the picture he showed on there.
Do we have that?
Well, I'm going to show what I think he's referring to. And what I think he's referring to is the site plan that he submitted with his application, his zoning board application.
That one.
I believe that's what he's,
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. I submitted that into the city of Troy, and
It's not
some
stamped.
modifications of the roof line being, the trusses being higher.
This isn't stamped or
No, that was
so this has never been submitted to the city of Troy?
after the fact it was.
So this has never been submitted to the city of Troy because it's not stamped?
Right. When I turned it in, they sent the package back to me.
Okay. I did go out and view the property, and really there's more information here than what I was aware of looking at it, and I can tell you that it is well built. Does it conform to what our standards are? No, but I feel there's some information that was solely lacking and some gaps in this than what I originally thought.
So you submitted that plan
I submitted the
to
first
the planning
plan.
commission,
I submitted the first plan
or to
first.
the building department?
Yeah.
And you got it back in the mail?
That one I did. They rejected the plans.
Okay. So,
They said to get engineering. I went to an engineering, Joe Vaglia, which was the cheapest, and that was $5,200.
we don't consider the cost here, sir.
Okay.
So you keep bringing up dollar figures. We can't consider one
Okay.
thing you say when you say that.
Okay.
You also said something about coming into the city hall and giving money or a check, I can't remember exactly what you said, to a
check
city
for-
attorney? The
No,
city attorney,
the planning department,
no, you said a city attorney.
or whoever I brought it in.
City attorneys here don't
Yeah.
collect payments.
No,
So,
I went,
yeah.
it was in the planning department or whatever. I submitted the application and a check, and it was returned back to me. The next day, I got a call.
Related to that plan or another?
No, that's the whole, for the,
whole
to
shebang.
come here,
Oh, I see.
right.
You mean the fee for coming to the zoning board?
$150 fee, I think it was $150 to
Okay.
come here. And it was, they said, you're wasting your time.
Okay. Anyone else for this petitioner? Otherwise, we can move on to the public comment. Okay, if you could have a seat, please. Thank you. So if you're a member of the board, I mean, the public or the board, I'd like to address the board on this important topic. Please step to the podium and be recognized. step to the podium and be recognized. You have to identify yourself first.
you.
Thank you.
I'll read the statement and then I'll explain you.
You have to identify yourself first.
My name is Kosta Krajcev,
Welcome.
and I am the owner of the adjacent property,
Okay.
northwest, that garage built.
Which one, which number?
5380, Rochester, which is north of the property, right there, 5380. Where is that garage next to me?
Okay.
And also, I rent that house. I live in Troy, in Oakcrest, and also I own a building here, office building in Livernois, in Troy also. My wife and I have enjoyed living in Troy 27 years. We have raised our family and appreciate all that Troy has to offer. The reason I'm here today is because I completely disagree with how Mr. Joseph Mikalev has gone about building his garage barn for the past 2 years. To me, it seems that he has been scamming and cutting corners without following the proper guidelines and guidelines for zoning and building. He has no regard for neighbors, including me and my tenants, and my property, which is he's still trespassing and encroaching to this day. I want to inform you that he is short of 3 feet for the variance. Is not 1 foot 6 inches. I hired professional surveyor on July 13, 2018. And I have pictures. I put a yellow tape so you can see how close is the building to my property line. I can submit those pictures. Okay. Okay. Also, it seems that the garage is 3-story building, not 1.5, which he's looking for the variance. I have pictures also submitted. Probably there is another violation, section 7.3B2C, where the garage is bigger than the house he owned. That's a huge garage. It's a 3-story, it's more than 2,000 feet squares. Also, he submitted to you certificate of survey, which is altered. He drew that garage on the survey, which you already saw that is not valid. I'm asking you, did he have all the proper inspections, or only when we reported it? On September 18, 2017, Maria, one of my tenants, called me. She said that there's 2 cement trucks in my properties. And I went right there, and what I saw, a picture where Joe is right there, the weather was beautiful, there's no rain, and he's supervising the footings, laying the footings for the cement. The first picture on that one is that one, and I can submit this one, the big one also. It's him here, right here. Okay? So, I talked to him, I don't know who is he. My tenants, they were telling me that he's always violent. He's driving with a truck through my property like he's no respect. So I talked to him, I told him, move the trucks from my property, and what you're building is too close to my property. He didn't want to move the trucks. I have to call the police. The police came later on and had probably somewhere a report in the police department. In the meantime, he's trying to manipulate, and he was saying all the kind of stuff. Now he told me, you cannot deal with me. My son is police captain in the city of Troy. He tried to threaten me. Then when I talked to the police, they stated this was a civil matter and suggested that I should contact the city. Then I contacted the city, and they start learning about this problem. When he pulled the building permit, he stated that it's for $8,500 value, and it's going to be 768 square feet. In the appeal letter, what he sent you, he stated that he spent $27,000 for that building. Immediately violated some kind of code. And the size of the garage, I'm telling you, it's more than 2,000 square feet if you take all the floors. Multiple times he damaged my property. He encroaches my property constantly. Even the last Monday I was there, he parked his trucks in my property. He bothers my tenants. While he was building, he was working day and night. My tenants, they cannot sleep. Also, he brought crushed stone on my property about 15 feet. I have some pictures there too. On July 17, my son Daniel, who is stating that he has good relationship, he was bothering my son. He was threatening my son. My son Daniel met with Mitch and Dana from the city of Troy. They were kind of inspectors. Paul, help me. Mitch and Dana, okay? And they won the property, and we served Joe and the city the notice for encroachment and trespass. And that states in the files. In conclusion, I'm asking someone from City of Troy to hold Joe McAuliffe accountable for his actions and clear disregard for all the zoning and building code issues mentioned above. How and why he can get away with this? How would you feel if this was happening to you? You can ask me if you have any questions, but I'm submitting all the pictures, and if you ask me what we have problems with this neighbor.
Thank you. So another member of the public, Mr. McCauley.
You said you had a survey done of the property line?
Yes, yes, I did.
Is it a stake survey?
Yes, a stake. There's a stake.
Do you have a receipt for that stake survey?
I don't have with me, but I can submit it. But there is a picture there when I put the yellow tape on the stake so you can see how close is the garage.
See, I saw one stake there when I went to observe the property the other day.
There were,
and that was just somebody had personally, that was not a stake survey, the stake that I saw.
They were surveying, and that's another thing. My surveyor put a nail in the driveway because he brought a crushed stone, and he removed probably. That's another issue. And I have a question. I'm sorry. Did I answer my question?
Microphone.
Okay. I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. I can submit from my survey. I can ask him to. Okay. But there was a stakes, and there's a certified surveyor, and he put a nail. He told me that he put a nail, but probably he removed it. As many things he removed.
There's no markings on the stake that I saw. There's no. They usually have survey markings on them. There was no markings on that stake. It was just a wood stake, and it didn't even look like.
Yes, but there also a nail, and I can submit from this guy. There was a nail. He put it there. Okay, special nail.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there another member of the public who would like to address the board on this matter? Please step forward and be recognized. Hello.
My name is Cindy Adams, and I'm located on the south side of Joe. My home is 5352. I just wanted to make a few comments. I agree with everything the previous gentleman just said. And I was reading over the documents, and I don't agree that there's any hardship for what he's done, and I can't believe that he didn't even get any inspections for that building, and he continued to build it. And so for that reason, I think that this variance should be denied because it is definitely too tall. And I don't know if he was referring to my home. My home is a story and a half, and we do have a basement. So if he was saying our home is a 2.5 story, he's wrong. That's incorrect. So I don't know if that would seem reasonable for him to build that story and a half garage that he did build. And then the other thing that I thought of as we were sitting here listening, I'm a bit nervous, so excuse me, is that if the garage was built where he originally had it on the plans, it probably would have just been that 1 story. Because when you go to the other side of the property, the land gradually went down and back, so that's how he probably created that additional storage, you know, below ground level at the front. So my assumption is that's probably why he wanted to move that, because he created additional storage in that area. And like the previous person was saying, is that he has no regard for his neighbors. He kind of does whatever he wants around my property, their property, and even in the back spillway. So I just hope that that this is denied. He's done everything incorrectly, and it's unacceptable. So I just hope that this is denied. And then one more question. Is it possible that I can speak on the lot split, or is that not a part of this? I can't speak on that at all. Will that be coming up at any time or no?
Did you get the agenda on the way in?
Yes, I did, but I didn't.
If it's not on this agenda, we're not going to consider it tonight.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So-
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to address the board, please step forward, be recognized.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening. My name is Maria Miller. I live in the other side, 5380 Rochester Road. I'm his tenant, I'm his renter. I've been in the property for 14 years. He's the worst neighbor ever had. The very first day he showed up to the property, he drove into that side of our property. My husband was cutting the yard, and he pretty much went straight to him. My husband had to stop because he didn't stop. The day of the cement, he was there. I had pictures on my phone. And his employees are there. His employees urinate outside in the public. I open my back door, I see his garage. With I have 5 grandkids. When they come over, he was building the building day and night. When I had my young children, they wanted me to stop. They were, Nana, please stop him. He was making so much noise day and night. One of our roommates had to move out because he just wanted to hurt him, because he was making so much noise day and night. And he has no respect for anybody, for the law or the neighbors, for anybody. He does whatever he wants, day and night, Sundays or Saturdays, 7 a.m. He has his blower, his tractor, his power wash, everything going since 7 o'clock in the morning sometimes. This is where I live. I live in this property since 2005. I raised 2 of my children when my daughter decided to join the Army. My biggest problem, he has no problems with laws. I try to have a conversation. He told me that as a renter, he'll make sure I get out of there. Okay, this is no way to treat a neighbor. Okay, we're so close together, and that property is so, my house is so, when he's washing or doing any of his powers, it's just like in my living room. You cannot watch anything or hear anything when he has all his blower or tractor, lawnmower. And by the way, the day that I told him to stop, he just continued with all the rest of his electronics making it. Like on a Sunday at 7:30, I got out and told him to shut it. And his workers, when he was building this garage, he was making sure every of his employees put a nail, every nail they hit it. I counted at least 15 to 20 times. Okay, I am so sick of this guy. He is the most nasty guy I ever known. And he should be removed from our property and so to the garage. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there another member of the public who would like to address the board on this matter? Seeing that there isn't, close that public hearing out, and I call on Vice Chairman Nagawas to address any communications with us.
This is an email from the neighbor to the north from 5380. I would read through it, but I believe he spoke, and he already made all these points at the lectern already.
Gotcha. So we bring it back to the board table for consideration, Mr. McCauley.
First of all, I went out and viewed the property yesterday and viewed the garage and spoke with the applicant. And I can be quite disappointed because I didn't have all the information. When I went out and looked at it, I looked solely at what was the structure that was built, not realizing that the application that, excuse me, that he put in, the garage was going to be located on the south side, got moved to the north side. How, I have no idea because there's no application for that. How it went from 1 story to 1.5 story. He told me what happened with that. He told me what happened with the poured footing, told me about the rain and everything. And I'm looking at pictures and I didn't have all the information. Looking at it, I'm disappointed in his approach to this and I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all. Matter of fact, I'm extremely disappointed with it. I feel I've been misled, and this is not a project that I think should be standing.
Thank you. Any other member of the board? Mr. Desmond.
I got a question for Mr. Evans, two actually. First, are foundation inspections required in the city of Troy after a foundation's been poured?
Yes.
Okay. Also, as far as overall square footage for below grade spaces, how is that taken into account towards overall, is below grade space taken into account for overall square footage as it relates to either the accessory structure or monster garage ordinance or any of that? I mean, how does that count?
It can be. We do have a formula that talks about if a certain percentage or ratio is below the average grade, whether it qualifies as a floor or story, as well as ceiling heights. We just look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Another member of the board. Mr. Rosenbrook.
I just would want to add that I guess based on what we've heard tonight from the different speakers and I guess the photographs and other questions that have been asked, I have a hard time, I guess, finding the applicant credible in some of his statements tonight, and I think there's been frankly just a lack of discussion, any evidence regarding the statement of practical difficulty. I don't find anything specific to this property. I mean, obviously the last petition we had before us, we had kind of an elaborate discussion of all these factors. I don't see any of that discussed here, any evidence of anything exceptional about the property that would have anything to do with this variance request. As one of my colleagues said earlier, it seems this is clearly something that is a result of the petitioners or someone he hired causing this situation. It's nothing to do specific to the property. And we have, I think, plenty of evidence for the last factor that this structure is offensive to his neighbors and significantly damages the, I guess, the quality and the
Second.
Motion for denial of the petitioner's request, seconded by Vice Chairman Agawas. Is there discussion on the motion? Excuse me. Seeing that there isn't any further discussion, Mr. Evans, we're prepared for a vote. Now, I'll just remind my colleagues that a yes vote is for denial, a no vote brings it back to the table, or perhaps not if there isn't any further action to be considered. Just want to remind everyone.
Ms. Cruz.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Agawas.
Yes.
Mr. Desmond.
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook.
yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley.
Yes.
So the resolution is agreed to and the petitioner's request is denied. On to item C.
Mr. Chair, if I could I respectfully request a 5-minute adjournment?
Oh, sure. It is. We've had a long night already, haven't we?
We have.
Okay, so we will take we'll stand at ease for about 5 minutes and I'll recall the board when we're ready. Item C, 1579 East Waddles Road. Mr. Evans, could you please present to us on this?
Yes. Yes, and this is for property at 1579 East Waddles, and this involves a proposed parcel division. Subject property is on the north side of Waddles between John R. and Rochester. The subject property and all properties seen in this view is zoned single-family residential. The property is commonly located, if those of you who are familiar with the south driveway to Athens High School, it's a little ways west of that. And this is a proposal of the existing, I shouldn't say proposal, this is the existing property dimensions with a house on the property, and the applicant is requesting to bisect that into two virtually identical pieces of property. The zoning ordinance requires that newly created parcels in this zoning district have a minimum of 85 feet frontage and width. The proposed parcels are to be 80 feet wide and have 80 feet of frontage. So in order to have his lot division approved by the city, he's seeking this variance. I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
Is there a member of the board who has a question for city staff? Hearing none, we can call the petitioner forward or representative. Hi, please identify yourself.
Akram Sidholm.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What do you have to share with us tonight?
I assume you have the whole sheet of practical difficulty?
Yes.
Folks read it? Okay, I don't need to go over that with you. Okay. Did you get a chance to take a look at the maps that I attached? Of the other properties in the area, in the whole zoning area, including my residence, which I built 22 years ago in Troy. We purchased that from an individual who got a variance, two variances. One for the frontage and one, the next door house is like 5 feet away. So, and the rest of them are, as you could see in all the maps, they're 70 feet, and I actually missed a few that were 60 feet. And all these properties not only had to get a frontage variance, but they also had to get a square foot variance, which is for R1C is 10,500. As you can see, they're 9,500 square feet, 7,400 square feet, 8,400 square feet for the total. We're just simply seeking a variance for the frontage. Plenty of, no trees are going to be cut because there's trees on both sides, right on the property lines almost, and the rest of it is vacant. It looks like a vacant lot. And there was a couple of things I wrote here, and yeah, trees on both sides, and we're not going to be seeking any other side variances or any other variances for the home. There's plenty of room for a nice house. The one we're looking at would have 20 feet on each side. It's not ours.
Anything else you want to share?
No, as long as you went over the facts that I gave you. I don't want to go over it.
You can make a statement, sir, but you can't inquire of the board unless the board has a question for you. So that's the way it works around here. Mr. Eisenbacher.
So your intention is to leave the existing house present and build a second one next to it?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is there another member of the board for this petitioner? Okay, you can have a seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll open up the public hearing on this matter. If you'd like to address the board, please step forward to the podium and identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Chris Healy. I've been a resident of Troy for 29 years. I live at 1552 Merriweather, which is the street right behind that house. Okay? I walk by that house virtually every day. My understanding is that that's a rental property. Is that right? And in my understanding also is that it's really an LLC, right? So it's a corporation or some sort of partnership.
You're asking questions, sir. The purpose of what we're doing here is we would take in any comment you want. So you can't turn to the audience and ask questions. You can't.
Okay, can I ask you?
No, you can't ask a question. You can make a public statement. This is a public hearing.
That is my understanding.
Okay, you can say what you want. I'm just telling you.
Okay,
this isn't question and answer session.
My understanding is that it's an LLC. It's a rental property. It's not well kept. Quite honestly, it's not well kept. Like I said, I walk by it every day for 29 years, and there hasn't been much done to that house in 29 years. And that's the truth. I worry about the quality of the neighborhood. I worry that he'll put another rental house up, and he'll maintain that house much the same as he's done that house. So I've been a resident for 29 years. I wish that house would be sold or bulldozed. That's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address this board on this matter? Please step forward and be recognized. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Nancy Inucci. I live at 1580, directly behind 1579. My backyard is adjacent to the backyard of his property. I would like to say that if the city is going to grant this property owner the privilege of a variance that could potentially have a negative impact on the values of the surrounding properties, that he should first be required to properly maintain his property. The grass is not mowed regularly. Right now it measures over 18 inches in some areas. I brought a few photos to show you the view from my backyard. You can see that there are things strewn randomly, garbage cans that are overflowing. I'm in the process of updating my patio and outdoor space, and it's upsetting to me that no matter what I do to my property, the view from my yard will continue to be an eyesore. I feel this property owner has already negatively affected my property value by allowing this mess. And at a minimum, I would like to see him required to plant a row of trees near the property line to serve as a screen. So these are some of the pictures. I tried to show the height of the grass. This is my lawn mowed. Took a measuring ruler, and it's well over 18 inches. So I don't know if this helps. Anyway, I would just really like to see the property cleaned up and taken care of. I think Troy is the city that we can expect that, and the rest of us, I cut my grass once a week or more, and this lawn goes for 2-3 weeks at a time and is never cut. I've complained in the past to the city, and there's been times when, they've been told to cut it, but it's a constant process. If you're kind of complain and, something gets done temporary, and then, so. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to address the board on this matter? Last call for public comment? No, we've already had you here, sir, unless there's a board member who wants to recall you. So public comment is closed, and we bring it back to the board table for possible consideration and possible action. Mr. Desmond.
Just looking at some of the other properties that are up and down Waddles here. The smallest of them is 23,000. This is overall lot size, 23,787 square feet. We also have a 32,000 and change, 30,000, 30,000, 37,000, with this property coming in at 36,262 square feet. That if that was to be split in half, and each of those lots were divided and be separate buildable lots, compared to the other smallest property along that line, which is 23,787, that's about 5,656 square feet smaller than the smallest lot each. That's a dramatic difference from everything else that's along that road. So properties behind it, inside a subdivision, I don't think that you could compare the lot sizes inside those to the lot sizes along the main road where everything is symmetrically large or similarly large. Just a statement, that's a dramatic reduction. That's not like a small variation between lots. That's a pretty dramatic difference, I would say. So.
I'm sorry. You cannot speak from the gallery. You're out of order. Please don't do it again. Is there another member of the board who would like to be recognized? Ms. Cruz? No? If there isn't a member of the board who wants to be recognized, Mr. Eisenbacher does, I guess.
It occurred to me when we were up here that we had a variance last year that was on the other side of Rochester, on the south side, that split, and I was trying to remember, it was a similar request for a split, and I can't remember what its square footage was. It's not as close as my colleague just mentioned with all the surrounding properties. I was trying to remember what agenda that was in.
Rochester itself?
Not on Rochester, on Wattles. Did I say
Rochester, yeah.
It was west of Rochester on Wattles.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. McCauley.
That's the one that I asked you about, Mr. Evans, that you emailed me about.
Yes, and that location, to help assist board members, is, I don't remember the address that we had it listed under, but it was here at, what is this, Jennings and Wattles here?
It's 566 and 582.
Yeah.
That's the one you're talking about.
Yes. Yes. So you remembered the same one from last year. What is the square footage of that split? Do we have that?
What are they at?
Yes.
Well, let's take a look here. I've got it on the overhead. I'm going to have to bring it over to my computer just because I can't read it.
I have it here if you have addresses.
Yeah, 566 and 582 East Wattles.
66.
Our GIS records show that each one of those lots is 81 feet at the front property line and
Public record.
268 deep.
66, I'm not getting that in the public record.
268.89 according to the GIS by 81.
It's Wattles and what?
Jennings.
Okay, so at least 40 feet deeper and at least a foot and a half wider. So they're not exactly comparable.
Oh,
There's one in the public.
Yeah, they're 81, a foot wider.
Okay.
I don't have an updated public record. I've still got it as a single lot.
Well, and to answer the question, if I may, let's see, so it's 81 times 268.89, 21,780 square feet is what those calculate out to. I'll bring it back over so everybody can see. So I did it for 566 and 582. I'll zoom in. There's your width. And down here, they've marked, when I say they, the county actually is the one that puts these in based on land descriptions. There's the depth.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. McCauley.
Also, if I look at the, you're talking about an area on Waddles Road between John Arn and DeQuinder, and looking at the size of those lots and the configuration of that area, and comparing it to the lots that are on Waddles Road between Livernois and Rochester Road, I think that the ones that we granted last year fit with the neighborhood, fit with what the rest of the lots look like in the area, whereas I don't believe that to split this lot would fit with that area. I think that it is too small for that area, and I see no reason to, by looking at those, why we would want to split that.
Mr. McCauley, would you like to make a motion?
I make the motion that we deny the applicant's request to split the lot.
There's a motion for rejecting the applicant's request. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Desmond seconds. Is there any discussion?
Maybe I
Vice
just
Chairman
have
Agalos.
just some clarification before the vote. Is the reason for denying the variance a lack of hardship or another reason, or can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
I would say there's a lack of hardship. There's no characteristics that make this property unique. To grant that, there is nothing that they have done or the people before them have done to make it a hardship. I think this is just a want, not a hardship in any way.
Another member. Mr. Evans, we're prepared for a vote.
Mr. McCauley.
Now, let me just remind people, a yes vote is to deny the petitioner's request. A no vote brings it back to the table for more possible action or means it goes away. But a yes is for denial. Just want to be clear. Please, Mr. Evans.
Mr. McCauley.
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook.
Yes.
Mr. Desmond.
Yes.
Mr. Agawas.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Ms. Cruz.
Yes.
So the petitioner's request for his approval is denied. We move on to item number D, which is 3151 Helena. Mr. Evans, can you please present on this matter, please?
Yes, and this involves a proposed detached accessory building and minimum square feet allowed. Now, this property is located in a residential neighborhood at the corner of Helena and I believe that's Heartland, north of Big Beaver and east of Livernois. 3151 Helena is the address. And they're proposing to erect this detached accessory structure in the rear yard. And in this survey, I've outlined it in red, 16 by 9. And the city code regulates and limits the amount of detached accessory structure area that they can have. And in this instance, when you do the calculation, the ordinance would allow a total of 718.4 square feet of accessory structure. The combined total floor area for what's out there now plus what they want to build would be 892 square feet. So in order to build what they want, they're seeking relief to proceed. I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
Any questions for city staff? Seeing none, then we're going to call our petitioner forward. If you're here on this matter, please step to the podium. and please identify yourself.
My name is Linda Pure Felice. I'm the owner of the property. This is Mr. James Horn, my boyfriend, who also resides there, who will also be building the shed. And I'll let him speak on my behalf if that's okay.
Sure.
We're requesting 174 square foot variance in order to build a shed. If you look at the pictures in Exhibit B, you can see that the house is built on like the first third of the property. It's 110 feet wide, and we've got quite a bit of area to build over there. And no one can see it from behind us, only from beside. I think it would make an improvement to the neighborhood as far as looks go. I've made quite a bit of improvements to the property, and everybody has liked everything they've seen.
The reason for the shed is to get things out of the garage, the riding lawnmower, the push lawnmower, the bicycles, the lawn chairs, so we can actually park cars in the garage. Given the brutal winter we had, I'd sort of like to be able to park in the garage this winter. So hunting equipment, just want to move it out of the garage and into a nice shed, which will be sided and shingled and look very much like the home we live in.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, is there a member of the board for these petitioners? I'm sorry. Okay, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Mr. Eisbacher.
You've seen the petitioners ahead of you. You're last on the agenda this evening. And I've read your statement of practical difficulty. Other than the size of your current house being small, which the calculation dictates to small accessory buildings, is there any other hardship with the land that necessitates this variance?
Not with the land. We just need extra storage space because our house is so small and our garage is taken up with this stuff that we need to get out of the garage.
Okay.
The house is less than 750 square feet, and the basement's about half of that. So we don't have a lot of room.
The basement is not the full size of the house.
I think it's what they call a Michigan basement. So we're looking for more room.
Okay.
We just need more storage space. That's basically it.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Okay.
Is it a Michigan basement with dirt floors?
No.
That's what I remember what my grandparents had. Very small and dirt floors.
It's small mechanicals and very small laundry area, but no dirt floor.
The sump pump room is in a dirt basement.
Yeah, true. That it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So I'll open the public hearing on this matter and ask anyone who wants to address the board on this issue to step to the podium. Second call for someone who wants to address this board on this issue to step to the podium. Close that portion out. Call on Vice Chairman Agawes to share with us any communications.
No further.
Very good. So we bring it back to the board table for consideration, inquiry, or action. Got quiet in here all of a sudden.
I don't know how material it is, but just from the public record that I have access to, the square footage stated is 1,175 for the property as sold in 2017, or as refied in 2017.
Mr. Evans.
And the formula does take into account it includes, well, it takes, one of the tests is lot area. Another test could be size of the house based on the configuration that we have on this property and the size of the property. the allowable amount of accessory floor area is based on lot area. Specifically, the calculation says shall not exceed 450 square feet plus 2% of the lot area. So when we do those calculations, that's how we come up with the 718. Because so I just want to be clear that the board, that the standard isn't necessarily, in this instance, it's not the size of the house, but the size of the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yeah, smallness of the property is one of our criteria. I mean, I travel through this neighborhood quite a bit because it's between my house and my employment, and it's a good way to bicycle without getting with cars. And the characteristic of this neighborhood is detached garages. They are smaller lots. I don't see this as being out of place in that neighborhood. It's not an excessive request. It's typical for homeowners in Troy to want more storage, as we have seen on this board. There are no complaints. As the petitioner showed, there is no impact on the neighbors because it's well screened in the rear yard area and shown in the pictures. Basically, I believe it meets the criteria, or the majority of the criteria, and I would move for approval.
Motion for approval.
Second.
By Eisenbacher, seconded by Desmond. Sorry. Sorry, I got the stupid frog in my throat. Is there discussion? Mr. McCauley.
I went out and viewed the property, and that lot seems to be a little bit bigger than most of them in the neighborhood. And looking at the other structures in the neighborhood, I agree with Mr. Eisenbacher that this would not be out of place. I think that it would fit in nicely in there. I think that it would be an addition to the neighborhood. So I agree with Mr. Eisenbacher on this.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Evans, we're prepared for a vote.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Agawas?
Yes.
Mr. Desmond?
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?
Yes.
Mr. Bossenbrook?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations, you have your variance. Item number 8 is, 6 are communications. Are there any communications, Mr. Evans?
I do not have any.
Item 7, miscellaneous business. Is there any business that the board needs to consider here tonight that we haven't already considered? Hearing none, I'm going to open up public comment. So if you'd like to talk about anything, come to the podium. And we've been here for quite some time tonight. So I'll call for public comment again on any matter. Please come to the podium and be recognized. And I'm not seeing anyone, so I'll close that portion out. And we bring it back to the board table for adjournment, and we are adjourned. See you in August.